this talk, we're talking about the Divine Mother, the Divine Cosmic Mother, and why she is so important. Just that the Divine Mother is truly such an important aspect within our creation, because she is truly the energy we really connect into. She's one of the most ancient mythos in our creation. Yet we know there's something very special to her, because at a particular time in our culture and history, there's a distinct time in history we can really see that the mother was kind of written out of history, and then the divine father was kind of placed as the primary figure within creation. But as we do the womb chakra healing, and as we work with all of these sacred technologies, we want to acknowledge really what is the Divine Mother. And so, as we get started with this, the very first thing I want to start with is the Holy Womb Chakra. This is a book, it's a free download from the Divine Mother School. And as we start, we're just going to look at the very first chapter here from Sri Kaleshwar, talking about the Divine Mother and how the Divine Mother is in every soul in the universe. And I just wanted to capture this image in here just because it's so absolutely incredible. It's so beautiful. Whatever mythos we look at, we really see that the divine always births out of these cosmic wombs, these cosmic mothers, or cosmic eggs. So let's really look at it from this perspective of why is the mother's womb so important. It says the Divine Mother is the mother to every soul in the universe. From the earliest time in the Indian tradition, they worshipped Mother, Divine's womb, her birthing place. It is the holy spot we all come from. Still, in some temples, there are huge statues of the womb. They knew the inner secrecy. We all came from the Mother. All souls were first created in the Divine Mother's womb. Every creation, every soul is linked to the Mother's womb. Mother Divine is the mother to every soul in the universe. She doesn't belong to any religion at all. The mother is the universal God goddess. That mother created your mother, and that mother created you. The female energy is necessary in nature. In the Vedic tradition, they saw nature as the mother. This is going to be a key point for us to look at. In the Vedic tradition, they saw nature as the mother and God as the father. Some say without God there is no nature. Others say without nature there is no God. I agree that without nature there is no God. After understanding God and taking the fundamentals of God, we can take off using the nature. In nature, we can create incredible supernatural things. So even Sri Kaleshwar is saying that he spent time meditating on this, and he began to recognize that nature came first. One part, God, is formless, but we're talking about the female nature. When you're sitting in front of the ocean, sometimes it's completely pin drop silent. The waves are very calm. Sometimes it's really wild, isn't it? What's happening there? What is that energy making it like that? It's formless, but it can create any form. There is an unbelievable vast ocean. You can't drink all of her drops of water. You can digest, but not completely. Some is still left. That is her. The whole universe is her creation. There is no end to her creation. She is infinite, but you're also part of that infinity. She is the nature, she is the teacher. We can learn everything from the nature. Everything is there. Just observe her creation, her nature. Until you know her, it is not that simple to understand this creation. It's not that easy. A bee is creating honey. Before creating honey, it is sucking it from the flower. The mother gave it. In the flower is the essence. Only the bee knows how to take it. Only the cow knows that when she wants to feed her baby, automatically the milk comes out. If she doesn't want, it won't come. It is the great supernatural, the natural and the supernatural secret. Mother is the top supernatural character on the planet. Everything came from her, the bad and the good. She created the tiger, she created the lamb. She is the woman of huge love. She is also same part a woman of huge anger. So this is really important too. We talk a bit how he really brings into perspective for us to understand the cosmic mother from this divine cosmology perspective, is that it is holding absolutely everything. It is the good, it is the bad, right? So what is this meaning? It is meaning that in later on he talks about 50% of the divine cosmic mother is just pure unconditional love. It is holding all creation in place with this nurturing, loving, mothering energy. 50% of it is actually giving us the playground to play with. So 50% of her is devoted to whatever dreams in the illusion we want to create. So therefore, we could perceive her as huge love, or we could perceive her as huge anger. All of it is coming as just part of the Maya of the creation. So as we continue, it says one part is positive, one part is negative. So that would look like polarity, wouldn't it? But I'm not seeing her in negative way. I'm not seeing her in positive way. She just is. She is. That's it. She is the divine mother plus, or she is the mother plus divine. In the divine, there is the opposite. It's everything. In the nature, you can see very beautiful flowers and beautiful lakes. It's gorgeous. This same nature brings huge earthquakes, floods, and many disasters. It's terrible. Mother Divine's nature is like that. Once she starts to calm down, here you go. Everything, whatever you want, you can receive it from her. You should taste her in both ways, then only you can really understand her. Otherwise, no way. Otherwise, there is no fragrance in your life. You didn't understand the real truth. This is also really, really key because a lot of the work of the womb chakra technology is about building up our womb chakra. Again, men and women have a womb chakra. I might start to interchange the term with another term he used, which was the acknowledgement that the womb chakra was the basically the birthing place of our soul. It was how our soul emerged into creational experiences. So what he's saying here is we need to experience her in both ways. And one of the representations of that within the Hindu mythologies is through the energy of Kali. So it is one of the ways that we can see the Divine Mother in her many forms. Well, what does it mean? It means that if you really want to truly know the Mother, you have to know all aspects of her. But in order to embrace the cosmos, many times she has to come to us as representations even of her own self. Otherwise, we could not handle all of her. So many of the students of Sri Kalishwar who worked with him would have this experience. And I almost want to say the word darshan. I might be using the wrong word that they would use for this experience. But when a student had gotten to a place that they had been doing enough of the clearing of the womb chakra, enough of the building of the power of the elements within themselves, and going through the building and building and building and purifying of their energies, he would be a buffer, like a guide for them, an intermediary between them and an actual physical apparition of the Divine Mother. So part of this was the practice that they would have this experience where the Divine Mother would appear before them. But if they were not ready, it could either make them pass out, it would just be too much energy, they couldn't handle it, or it would feel like just too much. So he was like an intermediary, kind of like training wheels, so that they could be in that energy, and then little by little he would buffer it so that they could then hold it. Well, what is this really saying? Is this really a physical being showing, it was a physical apparition coming? But let me give this from another example. At one particular time, an interdimensional collaboration happened between him and Yeshua, him and the figure of Jesus. But it wasn't the figure, it was actually him connecting to the being through an intermediary or interdimensional space, if you will. So basically, him moving his energy into such a place, and Yeshua moving the energy, or the being that was that representation in this lifetime, moving that energy into that place. And he shook that individual's hand, or he touched their hand, but they were still in such a high dimensional plane when he touched hands that when that being left, he had blisters all over his hand. So there was a sense of, we want to recognize when we are exchanging energy or having a connection with beings that are coming from higher dimensional planes and frequencies. Remember, they're not carbon-based beings. They're running silica or silica crystalline or crystalline plasma or plasma flame currents. So, I thought that was a very neat way for us to see it, that there was uh, a way for us to really visibly see our carbon body. If we don't get it up into a particular level, it will blister us. Many times these higher dimensional planes will blister us. We won't be able to handle it. So this is what he's saying. You need to really know her in both ways to understand her. But it's really about, we have to get into a level of maturity to be able to do it. So this is going to be important as we kind of dive into some of the other perspectives of the Divine Mother. So again, it says, if not, you won't have any fragrance in your life. You won't have the full depth in your life that you truly could if you don't truly get to know all aspects of the mother. You didn't understand the real truth. Just, you were born. You lived only on the surface, then you died. It's over. Gone. You really only saw the material life and only experienced the normal surface love, not divine love. You didn't see the deeper inner side of creation, up and down. Who only understands the ups and downs? I can only consider him as the right soul in this universe. The remaining things are only peanuts. He used to say all the time, too, that individuals that don't truly move towards the divine or start to understand all aspects, he's saying it here, that the individuals will live only an experiential, normal surface life, physical life, go to work, get a job, have kids, retire, die. And he had a term, I know it sounds a little harsh, but he said that most humans are just living and dying like animals. Well, what does that mean? It means that most humans are living and dying and never following the path of gnosis, or asking, who am I? Expanding their consciousness and expanding that consciousness to the place where they are self integrating into their higher selves. So they live just like an animal, just living through instincts, living a basic material life and dying, and then basically just reincarnating it, doing it all over again. Things really remain peanuts. Again, I love his language. Mother is unbelievably loving, caring, sharing, loving, true love. You surrender, you respect her, yes, and she knows how to take care of you. The Divine Mother is the big mother to take care of you. Your goal is to connect to Divine Mother. You have the desire to hook her. So I want to start emphasizing some of these terms, because he's going to use terms like, you want to hook her, like grab. So like, get your hooks in and connect and grab that energy. Other times he says in the womb chakra work is to hit Divine Mother's womb, hit it. Well, I know the term sounds a little odd, but what he's talking about is that you're just, boom, you're like connecting with it, and you're accessing it, and you're utilizing it to create that transmutation and that transformation within this physical Maya and experience. So this is, it's really important. If you kind of can start to play with some of these terms, it'll be really important to utilize in your own womb chakra work and meditations for figuring out, how are you, when we say let everything dissolve into the womb of Divine Mother, we're really talking about a cosmic field, cosmic energies, um beyond beyond all the fields of, say, us, all of that cosmic explosion of a star being born. That is happening still within the cosmic energies of the Divine Mother creation, and you are that core star. So in a way, that massive cosmic energy of a core star being born is like your soul being born in her womb. Right. So how then, as a star, do we hit or hook into that cosmic energy, the only way truly is to know it, to know all energies of it, so that you can begin to, in some ways, be one with it. So once you enter into your mother's home, she will take care of you and give you whatever you really want. Don't ever get bad opinion on mother, even though I describe her background. She's a little angry sometimes. Once you really want her, your heart is open to her 100%, and she'll come and she'll take care of you. She's unbelievably kind. So, um, within this, there is a side note that I am going to take us to something within the Book of Nurea by Anton Parks, because there's a great description in there of Barbello that really talks about just what it takes to acclimate our energy to get closer and closer to the divine, so that it doesn't actually implode us or kind of turn us to dust, if you will. So, for a temporary period, she's a little strict with you to put you in good condition. What benefit does she get giving you punishment? Nothing. Even if she's a little tough on you, how much you react to her. She notices that. Surrender. It's fine. That's it. You're reaching the step of a divine person. This is a huge part. And for all of us that have been on this path, I think we would have a unique awareness of this, of that when you really start doing the ascension mechanics, when you really start taking sovereignty of your life and doing the steps to clear out, doesn't it feel like that's when all the challenges really, it's kind of like stirs things up? The challenges start to come in on us. And as that happens, he's saying this, that many times as we're on this path, the Maya will actually start to test us. The illusion will start to test us. It'll say, okay, are you actually truly seeking the wisdom that comes from the Divine Mother? Yes or no? And it will put challenges within our reality. These challenges are not punishment. These are actually just the things in our womb chakra that are actually making themselves known to us. And so it can sometimes start to think like, oh my gosh, why are all these things happening? But it's not. It's actually, in some ways, she's testing us. She's saying, do you really want to know what illusion or karma or energies you're holding in the womb chakra? I will show you. And then many times people will want to pull back at that point, but we want to recognize that as those come, they're really just giving us the opportunity to increase our capacity to handle more and more, and to truly become spiritual adults. So within that, it says, yeah, he's saying you're reaching step of a divine person by doing this. When you're reaching the step of a divine person, it means you're reaching a king's post. It means you have to maintain one part of the kingdom in the universe. You're responsible for millions of souls. It means you have to be trained. That's the only inner secrecy of Mother Divine giving you hard times. Wow, that is powerful, you guys, because again, we recognize as pillars of light, as the Om Shade we're here holding this energy. And then what? Well, it's the more energy or more consciousness you hold, the more you start to remember your responsibility for all ripples and waves you're putting into creation. And he's saying here, you're responsible for millions of souls. It means you have to be trained in order to know how to handle. So the more responsibility we take, the more we start to recognize it's not just our responsibility, but we're being quantified in our awareness of quantum entanglement and how our actions are affecting others. And that's massive. So just like she can create a powerful earthquake on the planet, she can create an earthquake in your soul by suddenly taking away something or someone you are attached to. She has the perfect illusion for each soul. Any testing, any illusion, any blocks, whatever, frustrations you're going through in your family life or your business life. It's all part of the game of the mother. It's another kind of tsunami or earthquake. We need to understand the nature, her illusion, nets, the layers hidden in the illusions, where majority, um, where majority people are getting success, where majority people are disconnecting and getting failures and how to come out of the illusions. Whoever understands how to enjoy her creations, they're really enjoying the deeper fragrance of this life. So when we look at this, when you know the people's souls, when you are the master, you have to know how to swim in the waves of her actions. A big ocean wave is hitting, you are swimming in the middle of the ocean, and you need to follow the ocean wave. You will win. You cannot swim that easily against the wave. No. So this is all super, super key as we just look at this. So there's just one last little bit here. It says, just surrender to Mother Nature. As we continue with this concept of Mother Nature, she's the only lady whom you can ask for protection. She's the only lady who can bless you hugely. She's the big mother. At the same time, try to understand what is really running there in nature: family, children, attachments, illusions, the bonds, the relationship attachments, sickness, disease, suffering, fear, unworthiness, guilt, happiness, joy, wisdom, knowledge. Once you taste everything, you walk out, and then what is new there? Then all of a sudden, each energy will enter your soul without your notice, and it will grind in you. Then you will become the real sattvic, or purity. So now I want to tie into a few things. So now we're looking at the mother from a very cosmic perspective here. But now if we start to kind of look into history and go, what is the ancient? What is the most ancient representation of the mother in creation? And I want to take us through a little bit of a historical look through within here, because as we look at the representations of the Divine Mother, many of us might have a connection, say, to Sekhmet or Hathor or Isis or even Kali. Now, when we look at Kali, Durga, Tara, when we look at Isis, Hathor, these type of beings, well, let's actually start to look at some of their timelines within creation. So as we look at these different representations in here, we're going to realize that they're not as old as we might think that they are. So one of the representations of the Divine Mother is Vajra Yogini. Let's go ahead. Here are some representations of the Divine Mother: Tara, Shakti, Pele, Kuan Yin, Hathor. We have Sekhmet, we have Shekinah, we have Sophia, Gaia, Pachamama, Nyx, Nut, Inanna, Vajra Yogini, Tiamat, Chaos, Namu, Hecate. So let's look at some of these timelines within here. And even as we look at Vajra Yogini. So Vajra Yogini is going to be more of a Buddhist kind of similarity to Kali in a lot of ways, but we recognize that the very first emergences of Vajra Yogini really into our consciousness didn't come until about 700. So now when we think of the year 700, we're going like, oh my gosh, that's actually not that long ago. Well, Vajra Yogini is actually a really neat representation of the Christos mission in a lot of ways. This was something that was brought forward a little bit more through Padmasambhava. So this was another incarnational time of different incarnates coming through the Sirius system in order to keep bringing in divine feminine teachings. The divine feminine teaching is the number one way that we can know what is someone representing. If someone is not representing the Divine Mother, then we can know that they are not truly holding the divine Christic templates. And I'm going to give some examples why. Because we're really looking at this as the flipping in the time of our galactic histories, when we have the Metatronic forces that were really starting to hijack the magenta ray, or the father ray, the father energies coming from our parallel systems. This is actually going to be really connected when we look at the metagalactic core. Well, what were they doing? They were hijacking the divine father representation and then utilizing that as a way to basically create control, utilizing the power energy of it. Now, within this, we have Sophia, the divine Sophia. Well, she doesn't really start to show up in things like the Nag Hammadi texts and scriptures tell about the year 100. So we recognize even the representation of Sophia, even though she is a Sophia Christus, we really do start to kind of connect to her more ancient than that. She was stripped from our records and memories and didn't really come back until about 100 CE. But we know from these scriptures and these wisdoms within there that they go back. They are going to go back till about Sumerian times as when they were written. Now, Kali, interesting enough, doesn't really show up until the Vedic and highlighted in the Puranas. And she actually pops out from an emanation of Durga. So Kali is not the most ancient within the Hindu mythologies. She's actually wasn't really even mentioned until much, much later, so not until about 600 BC. And Durga came in about 2000 years before that in the Vedic area. So Durga definitely has a much older cosmology within these histories, yet at the same time, we can see this is only going back maybe about 4,000 years in our history, so to 2000 BC. Now, let's take it back a little bit further than that. We're going to see that Sekhmet actually emerges actually out of energy more from Isis or Aset, which actually goes back a little bit further and is connected to Hathor. I didn't type in the name Hathor in here, so that's why it's saying this. But we're seeing that when you go back in the ancient Egyptian energies, you're going to see in the old hieroglyphs in the text that they can date her back to about 2300 BC. Isis or a set actually back into about 2400 BC. So now what are we? Let's just be liberal and say around 5,000 years that these beings. Now remember, this is where their written histories are. So don't worry, we're going to play with this. Now as we get to look at this, we go like, okay, well then the term before that was Nut, an Egyptian. So she represented, say, the sky goddess appearing in the Egyptian mythology. And then before then, so now we're going back to closer to 3000 BC or earlier. One of the oldest known deities talked about in the Sumerian mythologies is going to be Namu. Namu is basically a being that is really referred to as a cosmic mother here on the planet. I love the Anton Parks books because it starts to take it out. It starts to take it out into a bit of the seedings and a bit of the energies that went much, much further back. And so as we look at the vibration of Narea, which is also going to be this vibration of Namu, that this was a being much further down in incarnational experiences, that their histories went so far back that their records had missing bits and pieces of it. But one of the things that they recognized is the energy of Barbelos. So this is where we start to get to reconnect to that energy of Sophia so much further back, that we have these written records of things here that are such limited, fractured remnants of things on planet Earth. But in our oracular memories, our storytelling memories, and in languages that aren't even alive on Earth anymore, the histories of the Divine Mother go back so much further. So within here, it is talking about Nerea. Nerea, which would have also been a vibrational energy that would have started to connect to Namu, would have actually been considered the mother of Aset or Isis. But Aset or Isis, she recognized that, they don't see them necessarily as limited of like, oh, well, this is my daughter. She recognized that this daughter of hers, Aset or Isis, later known as Isis, but it was Aset, um, was actually a reincarnation of Barbelo. So it says here, Norea fights the dark forces, the archons, in order to educate living beings and teach them the first lessons. Her mission consists in completing her mother's work. Ah, Kendall. Um, that's why Norea's powers came from Barbelo, the mother of origins, and the concept of the divine feminine in many different Gnostic movements. In the 4th century, bishop and theological Ephanes of the Salamine refers to the Gnostic documents entitled the Book of Norea. In this manuscript, which has disappeared, Norea reveals the way to give back to Barbelo her integrity. She explains how the remains that were snatched from the mother from above by the archons who made the world, and by the other gods, angels, and demons who follow him, must be reassembled using the power contained in the corpses, which flows during sexual intercourse. So I want to translate this a little bit because this is really key. As we even talk about the divine cosmic mother is everything. And yet, at different times, she would actually take on incarnational forms and incarnate in. But this is really powerful because this actually starts to tell us about the Akamoth, or the dark mother. How was she used? Well, the archons came from above, and they snatched the mother's body. They began to take her and use her and reassemble and utilize her to create their own creations. And so it's talking about the mission of Nerea, or Namu, if you will, and the divine goddess as she comes back into reincarnation many cycles, is actually to constantly help to bring the mother back. And let's start to look at what are some of our historical timelines on here. Well, I'm going to move the womb chakra just to keep clearing some stuff here. Let's look at some of even just our earliest Earth histories on here. And we're going to see that the first seeding of the first human seeding was actually the Palladorian clusters. This was 250 million years ago. So now all of a sudden, even the talk of Namu doesn't even seem that very far back, being at about 3000 BC. We can see that we got 250 million years ago, we had the first seeding, but let's look at this. It was on parallel Earth. This is going to be much more connected to the Hyperborean, and the Hyperborean timelines will. One of the things that I do find is very interesting is these first seedings were in parallel Earth, but on the Gaian timeline. So this would have been the metagalactic core in the Orion system. So this is really key because we look at a lot of things going like, it feels like everything is kind of like playing out of the dramas that came from the Orion systems. Well, kind of it did. So within that, for quite a long time, close to 225 million years, this seeding was living there in the Gaian system. Now, within that, for about that time, then they started 25 million years ago, they started to take these 5 human Palladorian clusters and began to seed them on Earth. Earth at that time, we're seeing this much more on a Taran timeline. Okay. And when we see the seeding in there, now we're looking at where we're going to start to see more humanoid forms. The Hyperboreans were much more god or demigod looking, if we were to think of like even the Titans and these kinds of things. Now they are starting to come into human form. Now, what happened there? The first seeding was destroyed via the Electric Wars. What was the Electric Wars? Well, the Electric Wars were basically the energy of these beings. This is actually, let me take us to page 18 here. The Electric Wars were basically, a lot of the higher guardian races were super jealous. The members of the Syrian Anunnaki race, along with other groups, they were really jealous. They wanted to stop the evolution of the human races and abandon the whole Terranusium tribe experiment completely. So now as we're looking at this, I want to give you guys a little bit of a perspective. Where we're going with this whole narrative within here is recognizing that we don't actually have any representations of the divine cosmic mother on Earth that actually are representing the true Divine Mother. Even when we look at representations of Kali, Durga, Sekhmet, Aset, Namu, all of these beings, in a lot of ways, I'm actually going to start to encourage you to look at some of these representations as particular potential beings actual coming to the earth plane who had divine cosmic mother gifts and capabilities within them and representations of them. And then also flip within your thought forms of a lot of these divine cosmic mothers. Not only that, but many times representations such as the many attributes of the Taras or many of the attributes of the Kali are not actually the attributes of a particular person, but just the different qualities. Just like Shri Kalishwar was saying, the ocean can be like a big storm, or the ocean can be very calm and nurturing and loving. Nature can be very tumultuous, or nature can be very all over the place. So I would like to have you hold those two viewpoints just as play with it for a little bit. I am not asking you to think of this as the absolute, but as ways for you to start to meditate potentially for starting to connect. Because look at this. What do we have over here? We have in these timelines, we have full creations that are happening already. We have all of these races that are going on long before any of the histories of Earth. Now, if we were to take some of the oldest Earth histories and start to look at what is some of the oldest Earth histories of the Divine Mother that we have, we're going to find that we get really to the Paleolithic statues of the Venus figurine. That the oldest known representations of the mother on the planet really did have a lot more to do with the term what they called the Venus figurine, even though Venus itself didn't come through as a term until much later. But the most oldest figurines really did have these representations of the mother as her womb, her nurturing, her breasts for providing food, her womb for giving birth, and that there was much more of an energy to this as far as the vibrations of nature. Nature always provides for what we need in any planet, in any system. It is really the cosmic nature that supports us. So honestly, the oldest term of the Divine Mother, if we were actually trying to tap into the oldest potential term around the Divine Mother, it is either going to be the term Namu, or we could look at it as the term of Venus. Venus being so much to do with fertility, with later agriculture, and all of these things, she became a very venerated figure within our culture and our history that represented it. But now we're really looking at our oldest things we have, and these actually come from about 35,000 years ago. So now we're going like, oh, okay, we were looking at even Sumerian cuneiforms and texts as far as these kinds of things. We know the Atlantian cataclysms and these things going back about 12,000 years. Hmm. Now we're going like, wow, even the Atlantean times, we're going like that wasn't that long ago as we're looking at some of these energies. We got stuff going back about 35,000 years ago. Well, when we look at that, that's starting to touch us into a much different historical timeline. Now, as we're looking at this, let's look at this back through the creation. So this is actually page 147 in this PDF that I have here for Voyagers 2. And as we're looking here, we're going like, okay, we have nothing really coming in here that even talks about human seeding 1 or 2. All of these really were happening before the fall of the planet. Now, even to get to anything close to 30,000 years ago, we're really looking at Aeoni Grail line beings. So now I'm going to kind of flip you guys back one more time as we look at this. 30,000, 35,000 years ago, human beings walking around on the planet much closer to the Aeoni Grail line or the Melchizedek cloister humans. Who was walking around on Earth at that time? Well, one of the most ancient race lines, and there's ways to trail a lot of these beings, is going to be the Denisovians. The Denisovians actually lived primarily on the Earth around 300,000 years ago to 50,000 years ago. And there's all sorts of websites that you could start to go into. Some say emerging even as far as almost like 370 thousand years ago, and then beginning to disappear around 30,000 years ago. Well, what was happening 30,000 years ago was the emergence of the Atlantean times on planet Earth. If we start to look at these timelines, so as we're looking here, we're having about this time 30,000 years ago they disappeared. Well, now who's starting to really come into our consciousness here is our Aeoni Grail lines, right? So this is actually right around the times predating right before the Atlantean Holocaust here. That's the Holocaust. So that's the original Atlantean Holocaust that really started to create a fall from the Taran lines. But the cataclysm, the Atlantean cataclysm and the Sumerian invasion, we're looking at that at only about 10, 12,000 years ago. This now that we're looking at this doesn't go back very far, does it? So now we're going like, okay, the Atlantean flood, which I'm actually going to start to just place in the back of your guys' mind as the Indo-European Aryan timelines that have to do with the Black Sea and the flooding of the Black Sea. And this is going to be a whole other video that we're going to do on following the Aryan root race. So now remember, seeding 1 was on 7th dimensional Earth Gaia, Hyperborean. The Hyperborean timelines. This was the first one. When was that again? That was going all the way back. That was going all the way back 250 million years ago. And that one was a very, very long project, predating kind of the Terranusium seedings and the Terranusium races. So this is going to be the first root race was the Polarians. The Polarians existed in the antimatter, so they were our antimatter double, and then the Hyperboreans were the antiparticle double to the Polarian race. So we were each a half of ourself. This is where we talk about our twin or our double up on this level. And these beings still 100% exist within these planes. These are still part of our oversoul families and aspects that we can connect in and connect to. But we're going to see Hyperboreans is actually a term that we started to get to really become familiar with here on planet Earth. Well, what happened next? We had seeding 2. Well, seeding 2 was on 5D planet Earth on Tara. And they also started to eventually begin to seed them on 3-dimensional Earth. So the Earth plane where we are now. So that was seeding 2 and 3. These are going to be then the root race 3. So root race 1, Polarian. Root race 2, Hyperborean. Root race 3, Lemurians. We know that there was the Lemurian, then the Lemurian Holocaust that happened, and then much later after that, the Lemurian Holocaust again, really coming much later at around 50,000 BC. Well, at this time we already know there's Denisovians on planet Earth. They seeded about 300 to 370,000 years ago. So when we look at the Denisovians, I think this is really, really key because they actually hold a lot of key root race genetics within them. They are actually a lineage line that we can trail. They are referred to as the Denisovians because they were found in the Denisovian cave in an area in Russia. And here's where it would be maybe a representation that they're saying is what some of these beings might look like and some of the different root races potentially that have walked upon the planet. Well, we've looked at that image in the Guardian races from Oceanidine and the Voyagers books, and we're going to see, I think it's interesting. This might be the Quintinvillar that she talks about, maybe some of them. But I just thought it would be interesting to pull that up because there's a lot that goes through, especially in the book, The Cygnus Mysteries, and the Mystery of the Denisovians, as really actually talking about one of our original star races that existed on the planet. So within that, I want to just kind of put into your mind that we have actual records of races upon the earth that are coming from these times. And so even finding a little statue of a Venus figurine from 30 to 35,000 years ago, we're really just finding remnants from races that were much, much older. And that there is nothing in any written form that is any sooner, or that is any older, sorry, than any of that. So within this, one of the things that's really helpful for us to understand is that we want to recognize that there is really ancient histories of this. Well, why? And as we look at this, even from the books of Anton Parks, I find it interesting that this solar system was considered the mother home of the Genobule. And the Genobule were not just a reptilian race. It could be seen as them being seen as a reptilian race, but they were so much more than that. They were one of the cosmic or divine races, and that you could almost see them as part of these races from the Lyran constellation. That when the Anu Elohim broke away, they would have been family members within that same lineage that basically started to create digression, cloning, and put a bunch of their own family members in distress for a lot of the karmas that they were putting out into the universe. So part of what was constantly happening with these beings is that they were constantly incarnating into bringing the wisdoms back to the cosmic mother, to Barbello, from that perspective in Anton Park's books. And that Barbello, even then, was still a name that was given to a being that was really just the cosmic mother, the infinite mother, coming in as a representation of herself in order to begin to constantly always infuse and bring the wisdoms back, and many times giving birth to races and to new species within creation that are generally holding more of that code and that template. So why did I say earlier that when we look at teachings and different lineage lines of the Divine Mother, why did, just to come back into that statement that I made earlier of when we look at the Christos mission and the Emerald Order teachings and following these lineage lines, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at different wisdom teachings that keep coming back to earth to reset our connection to the Divine Mother. And that in whatever form we want to connect to her, whether we want to connect to her in a form of Shekinah, or in a form of Vajra Yogini, or in a form of Hecate, or Aset, or, Sekhmet, or Kali, it doesn't matter. She comes in all of these different forms, and most of these beings were actually the daughters of, or kind of the holders of, or the eyes of Ra, if you will, those that held the wisdoms of creation within them to bring these wisdoms back to earth. But at the truest level, the Divine Mother is all of it and none of it. She is beyond explanation. She is beyond how we can know her until we truly know all of her, as Sri Kalishwar has said, because as we begin to connect within her, we realize that she is that which is really holding creation in place. And this is why I have such a love when we talk about the divine wisdoms of Elesa Ma. So we have the flame of Elesa. The flame of Elesa carries the crystal core plasma flows. It's the 15 eternal helio-elasic helioplasmic eternal life silver seed currents, the crystal Elesa silver seed core crystal. The eternal life silver seed core currents are helioplasmic. Helio is really kind of referring to beyond a vapor form. It's really kind of like a vapor plasmic. But it's almost kind of even more beyond that, right? So as we're looking at the cosmic mother, she's everything and she's nothing when it comes into the creation, because all of it is kind of just her formed in different ways. But when it all dissolves back into her, it just goes truly back into these core currents of helioplasmic energies. Helioelasic crystal core currents, the eternal creation, Sun 8 core, triptolase. So this is almost sounding very similar to some sort of amino acid or some sort of hormone type of communication within our body. We're seeing it's right inside of us as kind of these levels of currents that even move and create action within our body. So this triptolase is coming from these deity planes, hydrolase, living eta water vapor. And when entering externalization, the crystal core pardon me, the crystal core currents appear as heliochroic, simultaneously showing undulating 15 spectral translucent bright pastel liquid plasma colors all at the same time within a heliocalic gold silver one base hue. Each of the 15 crystal flows carries an intricate musical composition of solar celestial plasma sounds that can only be heard internally during certain activations of the chismatic field and cannot be reproduced externally. For this reason, the crystal flows are often referred to as singing rays of eternal creation or the eternal living light love song of God's source. Each of the 15 crystal core flows carries the encryption of the specific heliochroic primary hue, and each has an audible tritone sound that can be used through tonal vibrations and repetitions to call in the ray and to hear its internal song. Calling on the crystal rays progressively activates the chismatic field and expedites chismatic healing. So within this, as we start to connect to the divine energy of the Elisa flame, we're really starting to connect to really the mother in some ways that gives birth to all the daughters, that gives birth to the Tara stars, that gives birth to all the different emanations, even the Sophianic, the Christos Sophia, the Triple Marys. All of these energies are just representations of her form, and that she gives birth of herself into these forms and moves as these higher vibrations that hold more of a connection or a symbiosis with her consciousness as they move into creation. And so when we connect to these divine representations of the goddess or the mother, we're really seeing nature. But it's not just nature, it's cosmic nature. So, what does this mean for us when we do the womb chakra work, when we connect into the womb? And how do we hook into it or hit the womb so that it actually changes the matter reality that we are experiencing? When we hit the womb, Sri Kalishwar is saying you hit it hard, you hit it so that you can actually completely get rid of the disease that is playing out in the physical reality and basically pull in a completely different reality into this reality. We would see this as kind of like quantum jumping or quantum healing, and these kinds of things is working with this energy. So the fun thing I wanted to kind of take a journey on with this conversation was really to have a timeline for us to look at, for us to start to expand our awareness that all things we even uncover on planet Earth, any archaeological finds, all of the migrations of humans and the different stories, especially as we're going to dive into the root races and look at the migrations of the Indo-Aryan race lines that primarily come from regions around the Black Sea, we're going to see that those were the primary races as they moved into places. They had direct influence over the teachings in India. It's going to be very interesting. So, what we're really going to be looking at with the Indo-Aryans is actually looking at some of the closest historical timelines we can look at tied to our Atlantean times in history. And where, what did we have happen in Atlantis? That was the time of the Templar Anu invasions coming from the Sirius star system that was wanting to overrun and change the teachings. What did they change the teachings to? Patriarchal teachings. So as you look at all teachings on earth, find what resonates for you. It doesn't matter. Find whatever representation of the Divine Mother you enjoy. Utilize all of them. It doesn't matter. Find the ones that really are about bringing us back to remembering the Mother. One of the statements of Sri Kalishwar is he said his entire incarnational purpose was to come and introduce the Mother back to everyone. When you hear that kind of speak, you are hearing about individuals in physical form who are incarnating from our Azurite lineage lines, from our Orifeme lineage lines, from our Blue Ray lineage lines, coming from the Andromedan Mother Galaxy, that are constantly coming in to infuse our remembrance of connecting to the Divine Mother. And that when we create that Hieros Gamos, we're going to realize that we want to know all the histories, because it does start to give us the way to feel all of the confusion inside of us that is in our cellular memories. But in the end, we get to take it all to the womb of Ilesa Ma. We can let it go. We can hit that womb hard. We can reset our karmas and our desires within there. And within that, this is really where we are truly going to